October Sky is a 1999 American biographical drama film directed by Joe Johnston and starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Chris Cooper, Chris Owen, and Laura Dern. The screenplay by Lewis Collick, based on the book of the same name, tells the story of Homer H. Hickam Jr., a coal miner's son who was inspired by the launch of Sputnik 1 in 1957 to take up rocketry against his father's wishes and eventually became a NASA engineer. October Sky is based on the lives of four young men who grew up in Colwood, West Virginia. Three principal photography took place in rural East Tennessee, including Oliver Springs, Harriman, and Kingston in Morgan and Rowan counties. The film was a moderate box office success and received very positive critical reception. It continues to be celebrated in the regions of its setting and filming. 5. October Sky is an anagram of Rocket Boys, the title of the 1998 memoir upon which the film is based. It is also used in a period radio broadcast describing Sputnik 1 as it crossed the October sky. Homer Hickam said that Universal Studios marketing people got involved and they just had to change the title because, according to their research, women over 30 would never see a movie titled Rocket Boys. 6. The book was later re-released with the name in order to capitalize on interest in the film. 8.
Plot.
In October 1957, news of the Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik 1 reaches Homer Hickam in the mining community of Colwood, West Virginia, who is inspired to build his own rockets despite the skepticism of his friends and family, especially his father, John Hickam, who strictly wanted Homer to work in the mines. Homer teams up with math geek Quentin Wilson, who shares an interest in aerospace engineering, with the support of friends Roy Lee Cook and Sherman Odell, and their science teacher Frida J. Riley. They construct small rockets. When one of them lands near John's office and nearly injures some workers, John warns Homer not to build rockets on his property again. The boys hike over the edge of the coal company's property to continue, where they succeed with the help of the townsfolk, including the mine's machine shop manager Ike Bykovsky. He is later punished by John for helping the boys, being sent to work in the mine. The rocket launches begin attracting townsfolk. However, the boys abandon rocketry after they are accused by the police of starting a wildfire with a stray rocket and arrested. In a mining accident, John is injured and Bykovsky is killed, devastating Homer, who feels responsible for his death. However, John later tells him that he offered Bykovsky to return to the machine shop, but he declined because he was making more money in the mines. Homer drops out of high school to work in the mine and provide for his family, while his father recovers. Homer is inspired by Miss Riley to read a book on applied rocket science, with which he learns to calculate a rocket's trajectory. Using this, he and Quentin locate their missing rocket and prove it could not have caused the fire. The boys present their findings to Miss Riley and the school principal, Mr. Turner, who determines the cause was a flare from a nearby airfield. Homer tells his father he is returning to high school and no longer wants to work in the mine. The boys return to rocketry and win the school science fair. When the opportunity arises for one of them to participate in the National Science Fair in Indianapolis, Homer is chosen. The miners' union goes on strike against the coal company. With the mine set to close and resenting his father's pressures, Homer storms out of the house, vowing never to return. At the National Science Fair, Homer's display is well received. Overnight, someone steals his machined rocket part model, the de Laval nozzle, and his autographed picture of Dr. Wernher von Braun. Homer makes an urgent phone call home to his mother Elsie, who implores John to end the strike so that Mr. Bolden, Bykovsky's replacement, can build a replacement nozzle in the machine shop. John relents when Elsie, fed up with his lack of support for their son, threatens to leave him. With the town's support and replacement parts sent to Indianapolis, the boys win the top prize and Homer is bombarded with college scholarship offers. He also shakes hands with Dr. Wernher von Braun himself. However, Homer does not realize it was him until after Dr. von Braun left. Homer returns to Colwood as a hero and visits Miss Riley, who is dying of Hodgkin lymphoma. Preparing for the launch of their largest rocket yet, Homer asks his father to come, telling him that von Braun is brilliant but is not his hero, implying John is his true idol. At the launch of their rocket, named for Miss Riley, almost all of Colwood turns out to watch, including John, who had never come to any of their previous launches. John is given the honor of pushing the launch button. The Miss Riley reaches an altitude of 30,000 feet, 9,100 meters, higher than the summit of Mount Everest. As the town looks to the skies, John puts his hand on Homer's shoulder and smiles, showing Homer that he is proud of him. An epilogue reveals the real-life outcomes of the main characters' lives, noting that Miss Riley died, the mine closed, John dies later on, Elsie moves to Myrtle Beach, and all 4 Rocket Boys went to college, going on to successful careers, with Homer working at NASA.
Cast:
Jake Gyllenhaal as Homer Hickam, Chris Cooper as John Hickam, Chris Owen as Quentin Wilson, Laura Dern as Miss Frida J. Riley, William Lee Scott as Roy Lee Cook, Chad Lindberg as Sherman Odell, Natalie Cannerday as Elsie Hickam, Scott Thomas as Jim Hickam, Randy Stripling as Leon Bolden, Chris Ellis as Principal Turner, Ilya Baskin as Ike Bykovsky, Winston Link as Railroad Engineer, Andy Stahl as Jack Palmer, Mark Jeffrey Miller as Vernon, Don Henderson Baker as Jensen, Kylie Hollister as Valentine Carmina. Production. Filming began on February 23, 1998, almost a year before the film's release. Although it takes place in West Virginia, Tennessee was the location of choice for filming in part because of the weather and area terrain. Film crews reconstructed the sites to look like the 1957 mining town setting the movie demanded. The weather in East Tennessee gave the filmmakers trouble and delayed the production of the film. Cast and crew recalled the major weather shifts and tornadoes in the area during the filming months, but Joe Johnston claimed, ultimately, the movie looks great because of it. It gave the film a much more interesting and varied look. 9/10 for the underground scenes. The crews also recreated a mine, with Johnston expressing that the mine took on a villainous appearance in the film, which felt ironic given its position as the town's source of livelihood. More than 2,000 extras were used in the film. A small switching yard allowed the filmmakers and actors to film the scenes with the boys on the railroad and gave the freedom to do as they pleased, including the tearing apart of tracks. The locomotive used in the scene was Southern Railway 4501, relettered as Norfolk and Western No. 4501. Filming concluded on April 30, 1998. 9. The film star, Jake Gyllenhaal, was 17 years old during filming, the same age as Homer Hickam's character. In an interview in 2014, Natalie Cannerday recalled that Gyllenhaal was tutored on set because he was still in school and taking advanced classes. 10. Release. October Sky opened on February 19, 1999, in 1,495 theaters and had an opening weekend gross of $5,905,250. At its widest theater release, 1,702 theaters were showing the film.